Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have amongst us the visionary, Mr. Pavan Varma, for a session of Kalam brought to you by Prabha Khaitan Foundation, Ehsas Women of Mumbai, ITC Grand Central. In conversation with Mr. Varma will be Karishma Mehta. Today, I have a mammoth task to peel and reveal the innumerable layers of Mr. Varma. And even as I try, please remember, I will be uncovering but the tip of this human iceberg. A man who stands for liberalism, pluralism, acceptance of dissent, and avoidance of shrill extremist views. A man whose literary canvas is eclectic and ranges from Hinduism's greatest thinkers to poetry with Gulzar, a deep economic and social understanding of the great Indian middle class, to the wisdom inherent in the Kama Sutra. A man who staunchly feels that the schism between India and Bharat is the root of many a malaise. A man who has a deep-rooted faith in the Indian legacy of dialogue, which extends from the Upanishads to the freedom movement. A man who embraces with equal panache India's spiritual legacy as well as politics. Ambassador to umpteen countries, director of Nehru Center in London, official spokesperson of the MEA, press secretary to the President of India, the worthy recipient of an honorary doctoral degree by the University of Indianapolis in 2005, awarded the Druk Thaksi Bhutan's highest civilian award by the King of Bhutan in 2012. A writer, diplomat, politician, philosopher, economist, sociologist, all rolled into one larger than life entity. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Pavan Kumar Varma. And after the conversation, members of the audience, you have the opportunity to please ask your questions to our intellectual acrobat. Over to you, Mr. Varma.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be with all of you, and thank you so much for your over-generous introduction. Let me say that I owe a special debt of gratitude to the Prabha Khaitan Foundation, to Ehsas, and I always welcome this opportunity with the members of the foundation as part of the Kalam series for what I can best describe as an intimate, cozy interaction. And so I am very happy to be here with you and at your disposal to fire your questions at me or ask me anything that you would like. I would be very happy to answer.
So Mr. Pavan Varma, as you Swati said, you need absolutely no introduction. You are an author of over 23 books, and it's such a pleasure to have you with me today here, sir. Sir, let's talk about two of your books in particular. Adi Shankaracharya, the greatest thinker of Hinduism, and your latest book, The Greatest Ode to Lord Rama. Adi Shankaracharya, for those of you who are not familiar, was the great seer of Hinduism who lived in the 7th century. He re-articulated the fundamental spiritual, cosmological concepts and ideas which underpin Hinduism today. In a way, there couldn't be a better time for us to have this conversation, not just because of its intellectual curiosity, its provocations, but because of our current environment, where there are very many big civilizational questions, vexed conversations about who we are, what religion really constitutes, what is the nature of Hinduism, Hinduism as it's been articulated today, and the most important one, the battle between Hinduism and Hindutva. Coming to your latest book, sir, The Greatest Ode to Lord Rama, which is based on poet Tulsidas' Ramcharitramanas. Again, for those who are not familiar, Tulsidas wrote in the 16th century the Ramcharitramanas in Awadhi rather than Sanskrit, breaking the literary tradition to humanize the divine, to humanize Rama. And sir, I feel in a lot of ways your book also is furthering the same. It is making Rama more relatable to us. And hence, I want to ask you my first question, which is, there are many versions of Ramayana. Why did you choose Tulsidas' Ramcharitmanas and not Valmiki's, not Kamban's?
Well, you know, Hinduism is like a beautiful flowing river with many tributaries which join. In fact, because of its diversity, many people believe that Hinduism is not a religion at all, and they are very misinformed, because underlying that great diversity is an essential unity. Hinduism allows for that diversity, it nurtures it. I've got a dog somewhere here, one second. You'll excuse me, I have many dogs at home, and one of them is incessantly barking. Hello? वो कुत्ता को ले जाना मैडम के. So there are many versions of the Ramayana as part of this tradition of diversity. You have the first Ramayana, which was written in the 5th century BC by Valmiki.
Right.
Before the Christian era, 500 years before the Christian era, roughly. And then you have had many Ramayans, and I chose Tulsidas because, you know, for many people in North India in particular, the Ramcharitmanas is like a Bible. In fact, foreign observers have commented that they discovered that the Ramcharitmanas, for its inherent wisdoms, its lyrical prose, its literary effervescence, its concept of bhakti, its devotion to Ram, its retelling of the epic in such a beautiful form, has become a kind of Bible for North India. And Tulsidas' Ramcharitmanas is not only the telling of a story. I want you to understand this, because Hinduism inevitably, for everything, at every level, has many layers of thought. You cannot simplify Hinduism, because Hinduism is part of an exceptionally complex civilization, which was paramount for almost 4,000 years. Please remember, from 3000 BCE, before the Common Era, to at least 1000 CE, after the Common Era, which meant BC and AD, as we used to say in the past.
Right.
For 4,000 years, this civilization evolved, developed, grew, expressed itself in remarkably refined forms of creativity. So therefore, Tulsidas is grappling with two things. One is philosophy, and I will speak at greater length if you want me to, right now or later. And the other level, he is telling the story of Ram. And if you don't believe in religion, let's assume, Karishma, you're an atheist, then please read the Ramcharitmanas for its sheer literary verve. It can be ranked among the greatest outpourings of literature in the world. And it's an epic, 12,000 lines. But throughout, Tulsidas maintains a level of literary excellence, which is a sheer delight to read. Now, I know it's in Awadhi, and a lot of people probably cannot access that as easily as if it was in Devanagari, especially for a North Indian audience. But you can read the Ramcharitmanas with the translations in Hindi and English, as my book gives. And when you read the Ramcharitmanas, you are immediately taken up with the sheer bhakti, the prapatti, the surrender of Tulsidas at the lotus feet of Sri Ram. Now, this bhakti is not an isolated event. It's the result of a certain evolution of Hindu thought. I want to take you back suddenly from the 16th century, back to about roughly 600-700 years before the birth of Christ, what I call the BCE, before the Common Era. And at that time, 6 systems of Hindu philosophy developed. The Sankhya, the Yoga, the Nyaya, the Vaisheshik, the Purva Mimansh, and the Uttar Mimansh. The Purva Mimansh, just for your information, believed in karma. It believed in karma kand. If you perform the rituals as
And
prescribed in the Vedas in the right manner, that in itself would be a way to moksha. The Uttar Mimansh believed in the Gyan Marg. The
yes,
Gyan Marg, which is you must, through the right knowledge, proceed towards moksha. And the Uttar Mimansh is also the Advait school, the non-dual school, which is taken from the Upanishads when they say, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahm,
I'm Brahma.
Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. Ayam Atma Brahm. The Atma and Brahm are the same. These are the Mahavakyas of the Upanishads, and on this was based the Uttar Mimansh Advait philosophy, which later was developed and systematized in a remarkable manner in the 8th century CE now, again common era, by
Right.
Adi Shankaracharya. So there are two schools. What does the Advait school say? The Advait school says, and in a remarkable moment of metaphysical insight, which in my book on Adi Shankaracharya, I have a full chapter on how it correlates with some of the most recent discoveries of science in the field of cosmology, of neurology, of quantum physics. Now, so there's the Nirgun school, which says that Brahm is an all-pervasive cosmic
So I'm
conscious.
going to interrupt here. I'm
Uh,
so sorry, because I want to bring you back to the Ramcharitramanas, because I
no,
do want to
that is
discuss.
where I was coming. Actually, the problem with answering a question
You
related
always
to
say
Hindu,
mythology is all
unless you
interlinked.
yeah, unless you understand the linkage. So simply put, now I will take 40 seconds. The Advait school speaks of that ultimate reality, which is Brahm, as akhand, indivisible, achintya, beyond thought, adrisht, beyond sight, nirvishesh chinmatram, undifferentiated consciousness, sarva pratyay darshinin. It is all knowing, it is purna, complete, and it is nirguna, without attributes. That is Advait school. Now, from Shankaracharya's Advait, there developed a second school, which was elaborated primarily by Ramanuja, which became the Vishisht Advait school, which said that while the ultimate reality is this Nirguna Brahm, that Nirgun Brahm can also manifest itself for the purpose of devotees in a form which has attributes. In other words, which is Sagun. Therefore, since Nirgun Brahm becomes somewhat a dry concept to worship, although it is the ultimate reality, Ramanuja said that that same reality can have form and attributes which is accessible to the devotee. Now, this is the dialectic in Hinduism between Nirgun and Sagun. Now, Tulsidas in the Ramcharitmanas is trying to negotiate the position of Sri Ram between Nirgun and Sagun. And that is why the philosophical debate that is a constant feature for the last 2000 years manifests itself beautifully in the Ramcharitmanas. That debate continues even today. So, what does Tulsidas do? And this is important to understand when I said that apart from the story, the philosophical underpinning is very important to understand. Tulsidas says, Sagun Agun Doi Brahma Swarupa. Sagun with attributes, Agun without attributes. Sagun Agun Doi Brahma Swarupa Akat Agath Anadi Anupa. Both Sagun and Agun, that is Nirgun, are the reflection of that same Brahm. So there is no contradiction between the two. So Ram, as he worships him, the Sagun attribute is actually also the manifestation of that Nirgun, all-pervasive cosmic consciousness. And this debate goes on in Tulsidas. Not, I was just quoting one doha to you, but he says, for instance, Phule Kamal soh sar kaisa nirgun brahm sagun bane jaisa. In the waters of the lake, still waters of the lake, a lotus blooms so beautifully, just as Nirgun Brahm, from the stillness of its attributeless nature, a lotus emerges from that Nirgun Brahm, which is Sagun. So therefore, this debate continues throughout. And what is it that makes for Tulsidas that Nirgun Brahm, Sagun, in the form of a beloved Ram, a deity, you can go to him, you can surrender to him. What makes it so? What makes it so? He says that Agun Arup Alakh Ajajoi, which is Agun Arup without form, Alakh Ajajoi, unborn, that is Nirgun. Bhagati Prema Bas Saguna Hojoi. Because of the bhakti of the devotee, because of Karishma's devotion, that devotion compels that Nirgun Brahm to become the Sagun Sri Ram available to you.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. So now I'm going to go and talk. I want to also talk to you about two very important things. One, you have very beautifully and lovingly depicted the love story of Ram Sita. Now, anytime you talk about divine love stories, the first thing that comes to your mind is honestly not Ram Sita, it's the revolutionary love story of Radha Krishna. You know, Radha was never his wife, his companion, for me to be politically correct. And yet they are worshipped, they are revered. And you've written about that in your book in Krishna, as well as you've written about Radha Krishna in the Ramcharitramanas. So tell us, what's your favorite? Which is your favorite love story?
Again, I have to answer in a slightly nuanced way. You see, the Hindu religion is a very nuanced religion. You may not know it, I may not know it, most Hindus may not know it, but it's a hugely evolved, refined, and conceptually complex religion, which we all adopt easily as a way of life. Now, divinity has many forms. For every Radha, who is a mistress of Krishna, a divine mistress, the greeting is Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna.
Yeah,
her
Radha.
name comes before Krishna.
Exactly.
For every Radha, there is to be a Sita, the devoted, beautiful wife, not the less powerful, but a different role. For every Ram, who is Maryada Purushottam, the embodiment of rectitude, the role model of the perfect human being, always obsessed with the correct, there has to be Krishna, the Leela Purushottam,
Talking
who
about
is
the
the famous God, who is at play, who steals butter, who flirts with the gopis, who frolics with them at Vrindavan. And that, because the cosmos itself is a play of his cosmic energy. And that's Krishna. Now, these are concepts of the divine, which Hinduism enables, revels in it, projects, and leaves it to the devotee to
Right.
enjoy the multifaceted cosmos of the divine. So, therefore, now when we talk of the love of Krishna and Radha, it is the source of what is called the Shringar poetry,
Right.
nearly erotic love poetry, starting with not only the Harivamsh, the Vishnu Puran, and the Bhagavad Puran, where they show Krishna as part of a Ras Leela, dancing with the gopis. But there's no Radha. You won't find them in these texts. You won't find her. Radha, in my view, and I've said that in my book on Krishna, is a discovery, a creation of Jayadev in his Gita Govinda. Because if Krishna is Shringar Murtimam, the embodiment of sensuality, Jayadev wanted to create a counterfoil to Krishna of the same intensity. And so Radha is Raseshwari. She is the goddess of that mood. And so Radha is created. So Krishna and Radha after Jayadev, it opened the floodgate of love poetry. And interestingly, not in Sanskrit, in their own languages. Bihari in Mithil, Chandidas in Bengali, Surdas in Braj, Govindadas, and so
But
many more.
which is your favorite love story? Which is your favorite divine love story?
Without a doubt, and let me just mention about Ram and Sita. Now, they are a totally different, conceptually different embodiment of love in a monogamous relationship between husband and wife.
Okay, so now
Right.
that you, fair enough, sir. So now that you,
I want to say that it's impossible unless your mind is congenitally divided into polarity to say I prefer this and not that. Because the simple reason is the great joy and effervescence of Krishna and Radha in their dalliance has its own pleasure, and the sheer the gravitas. And by the way, there is love in both.
100%.
Don't think there's no love in marriage. so there is. When Sita is abducted by Ravan,
I want to come to
Ram is bereft. He grieves like any ordinary human being. He's in the forest with his brother. It's raining. And he says to Lakshman, can you imagine the line? Ghar gamand nab garjat gora priya heen darpat man mora. In other words, without my beloved, I am afraid. This is God saying, I am afraid. So therefore, Tulsidas,
hold on. You say that Ram is divine, right? Ram is God. And also, but now this is where most common laymen like us and most common Indian public, there is a doubt in everybody's mind. Only a couple of times that I have tried to read up on it, it still bothers me. So the one main question is, it's okay, the Ramcharitramanas does not speak about this because it ends with Ram and Sita together and living happily. But Valmiki's Uttarkand speaks in detail about Sita's banishment. Banishment of a pregnant Sita remains the most troubling and perplexing event for most of us, most Indians. Can you shed some light on that? Because if he was divine. So why would he banish Sita when she was pregnant? And because, sorry, go ahead, sorry, sir.
I'm not here to defend the Uttarakand of Valmiki.
Fair enough, agreed.
And I am not an apologist for what many of us, and especially women, rightly believe to have been an action by Sri Ram, which in a sense reduced his elevated status in our eyes, especially women. I can't defend it. But scholars increasingly believe that this particular section was added to Valmiki's Ramayana subsequently. You know, most of our scripts are, are manuscripts. They have evolved over a period of time, and sometimes there are additions made to the original text, and the final text that comes extant to us is not the original but with additions. Perhaps it could have been a reflection of gender inequality, of the prevailing modes of a later period, whereby patriarchy and the supposed definitions of a woman's purity as interpreted by a cabal of perhaps Brahmins who were the custodians of what is correct social practice and custom, but contextually of their time, in order to further reinforce from their perverted way of seeing it the status of Ram as Maryada Purushottam, who is right even when he is doing wrong. It was an addition. That's what scholars believe. I have not researched it. But in Tulsidas' Ramcharitmanas,
There isn't.
there is no Uttarkand. There is no
Right.
Uttar.
Sir, now can you talk
My request, Karishma, is don't throw the baby out with the bath.
the water? Yeah, that's exactly what I understand.
I mean, don't condemn Ram.
You know, I've tried to read a lot on this, and which is why I said I would love to get your view on this. Because as I again said, that for a layman who doesn't really read this, these are things which you said are more prevalent. They are spoken about a lot more. So as you said, that there could be a possibility it's added later on. And in the same way, as you said, that he still ended up being Maryada Purushottam. Rama was still Maryada.
Let me just add one thing. Our gods are, at least Ram in Tulsidas' Ramcharitmanas is near perfect.
Yes.
Near perfect. And even, you know, when I speak about, maybe you will talk to me later about Hindutva and Hinduism, and I can wait for that. But Tulsidas believes in absolute devotion. There's a particularly beautiful line where he says, Janani Janak, mother, father, Janani Janak, Bandhu, Sut Dara, friend, son, wife, Dara. Janani Janak, Bandhu, Sut Dara, Tanu Dhana, Bhavana, Suhadra, relatives, Parivara, family. Sabki Mamata Tag Batori. Make a weave of all these attachments. Sabki Mamata Tag Batori. Mama Pad Manahi Bandh Baridori. And tie them at my feet with a feeling of complete surrender. This is Tulsidas for Ram.
Sir, also you spoke about the Bhakti movement. So can you now tell us about how Lord Ram's role has evolved in India from the 16th century Bhakti movement to the present day Hindutva politics?
So ask me your question. What do you want to know about Hindutva politics?
Well, is it being Jai Shri Ram, is Jai Sita Ram or Jai Siya Ram? Is it being weaponized? Is it being militarized?
Okay, let me answer this question in as honestly and from my point of view, comprehensively. You see, Ram was not a passive God. He fought against injustice. He fought Ravan. He took up arms.
Yes.
But Ram is not a irrationally vengeful God. He does not indulge in violence, especially against the weak, the vulnerable, and possibly the innocent. His approaches, and there are two lines of Tulsidasa's Ramcharitmanas which you must understand. Sri Ram in Ramcharitmanas tells Bharat, Par hit saris dharam nahi bhai. Par hit. There is no greater faith, religion, dharma than the welfare of others. Par hit saris dharam nahi bhai. Par peeda sam nahi athmai. And no bigger evil than injury to others. This is Ram. When he's born, and you all must be familiar with those beautiful verses in the Ramcharitmanas, when he was born, what is the first line Tulsidas writes? Bhai pragata kripala, the merciful, deen dayala, the protector of the weak. And later in the same works he says, Karuna Sukh Sagar Sab Guna Agar. He is the ocean of compassion.
Yeah.
This is Ram. He is not that vengeful, irrationally violent, and above all, he is Maryada Purushottam. So he will not take the law in his own hands. Therefore, I believe that while Ram is certainly not a passive God, he will fight injustice. He will fight injustice also within the realms of Maryada. That does not weaken his resolve, but that definitely influences the manner in which he fights it. So when there are people who say Jai Shri Ram while lynching somebody to death,
Yeah.
I believe you are doing injustice not only to Sri Ram, but also to the entire ethos of Hindu civilization and religion.
Thank you so much, sir, for this. So, sir, you've also argued that moves like the CAA and NRC are against Indian traditional
Carry on.
Indian traditional thought and heritage. Can you explain how so?
You see, I have lesser problem with the CAA. I have lesser problems with the CAA. What does the CAA says? That people of certain religions, if they are persecuted in the following countries, in India, their claim to citizenship will be fast-tracked.
Right.
Yeah, fair enough. We didn't need an act. If this was our only purpose, we could have amended the Citizenship Amendment Act. And if you did bring in an act, I believe you could not have discriminated on grounds of religion, because if you are specifically excluding Muslims, I believe there can be persecuted Muslims also who look to India as a multi-religious, multi-plural, multicultural country who may find refuge here. So why exclude it? That's point number one, but I have lesser problem with the CAA. I have a problem when the CAA and the NRC are presented as a combo, as was done thanks to clumsy messaging, or deliberately as a motivated intent by the government. When it said pehle CAA, phir NPR, phir NRC. Now there, I believe this kind of messaging repeated at the highest level on the floor of the parliament, not once but many times, would create an apprehension in the minds of our own fellow citizens, its largest minority, that you are bringing in these two laws in combination, so that if you are not able to prove your citizenship under the NPR, if you are Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, etc., you can take avail of the amnesty granted by the CAA. saying that you are a refugee from persecution, whereas those who can't become citizenless. I believe that was unfortunate, and therefore, as someone who believes, I was a very proud Hindu. My next book is on Hindu civilization and its greatness. But who believes that today the Republic of India consists of peoples of many faiths, and our constitution commits us to respect those faiths.
Hinduism
In fact,
also is very inclusive. So this kind of
yeah,
goes against the ethos of Hinduism, right? Of not being.
and
It's been
Hinduism,
so
you will
millennia.
not find a religion, Karishma, and I don't say this with any sense of xenophobia or chauvinism, like Hinduism, which is so adjusting and accommodating to heterodoxy. Even when Buddhism came as an offshoot from Hinduism, or Jainism came,
Yes.
Hindu kings, Buddhist kings gave patronage and respect to all. In fact, the biggest shock to Hinduism, if I may say so, came from invader when the Muslim conquest took place, because they were a proselytizing and conquering faith when they came in. Later, it became assimilated in India, but it took centuries. And they believed that there is only one path and no any other path. So there was a lot of destruction of an earlier civilization, but that's another story. And we
Right.
don't need to excavate it now.
Sir, also, let's quickly, before we run out of time, talk about your book, Adi Shankaracharya, Hinduism's Greatest Thinkers. It's one of the most fascinating books, even for me. So, Adi Shankaracharya, he revived Hinduism and created a kind of an organizational structure for its perpetuation through 4 mutts. And he belonged to the Advaita, as you mentioned earlier, the Advaita school of philosophy. To a layman, can you explain what is the Advaita doctrine and the revolutionary notion of Brahma? I know it's
Well,
not possible for you to say this in such a short time, but whatever you
I'm
could.
going to speak up for you. You have to let your imagination a little free to understand the sheer audacity of thought of Hinduism.
Right.
Imagine 2,500 years ago, even more, 3,000 years ago, a group of visionaries, seers, sages who were in a forest with their disciples sitting at their feet. And they are trying to understand this bewildering plurality of the cosmos. What is the truth behind it? What is the underlying reality? Remember,
That's science today.
they are not searching for God. This is the important point to remember. They are searching for what could be the truth. And in those moments of deep philosophical insight, they say, and that's the audacity of thought, that the reality is that Nirgun Brahm, which I've already explained to you earlier, that all pervasive, attributeless, cosmic consciousness called Brahm. And everything else is subsequently an emanation from that Brahm as a result of the play of Maya, which in itself is related to ignorance, avidya, where you begin to take the transient, that the impermanent as real,
Right.
and the real, that one reality, as unreal. That is what Maya is. Not that the real world doesn't exist. Maya is about changing your perception of the world. What is asthai, asthir, impermanent, transient, cannot be the eternal. And what our world usually consists of is precisely that. So behind that, they said there is a other reality. And that reality, now science today that notion of Brahm, that cosmic conscious energy, which is, as I explained to you, amatra, which is infinite. Infinite. I mean, there is a beautiful Sanskrit couplet from the Upanishads, and you must be familiar with it. Purnamida Purnamidim Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. That it is totally complete. There is nothing, it's infinite. That is being borne out by the following factors. The nature of the universe, that it is amatra. Nobody can now say that the universe consists of this finitude. It is infinite. By the nature of the cosmology tells you that. By the whole process of evolution and dissolution. You know, there was a theory you mentioned to me when we were talking on the phone, the Big Bang theory.
Big Bang theory, Big Crunch.
But now the scientists are saying if there could be in one cataclysmic moment from a speck, the exponential growth through a Big Bang of this universe, why can't the reel wind backwards and there is a big crunch? So the Indian concept of cyclical time, you know, Vishnu creates, Brahma preserves, and Shiva destroys, and time proceeds. And then the whole notion of quantum physics, where when Advait philosophy said that what you see is not what you see. It is what you see, but not what is. Quantum physics is telling you exactly that. When it talks about consciousness today, neurological research is saying to you that there is ultimately, and all the leading scientists, be them Max Frankel, Schrodinger, Edison, the whole lot, Einstein, they all seem to have indicated that the universe is not explicable unless you accept that there is an underlying consciousness pervading it. So for a variety of reasons, I'm not a science student, but I delved into cosmology, into quantum physics, into neurology to make the correlation between Brahm as that cosmic energy and what the latest scientific research is revealing. And that chapter is fascinating, and from my point of view, it's a very interesting one in the book.
You've actually quoted saying that Stephen Hawking may as well have been a disciple of Shankaracharya. Hawking may have been surprised to discover how much what modern science has revealed, particularly in areas of cosmology, quantum physics, neurology, was already anticipated by Shankaracharya millenniums ago.
Not only Shankaracharya, last point. Shankaracharya systematized Advait thought in his inimitable genius. But it comes from the Upanishads 3,000 years ago. In that forest, seers were able to search for the truth in categories which are being endorsed by modern science today.
So, sir, I'm going to ask you a last question, which is not about your books, but it is about you've been separated from the JDU for a while now. So one, it would be very interesting for us to know what would be your next political step. And also, do you believe that the political landscape in Bihar is changing? Because just before the pandemic, Prashant Kishore, your colleague, former colleague, announced his campaign, Baat Bihar Ki, and it was received pretty well. And even Kanhaiya Kumar has been drawing quite a few massive crowds. So do you think there is some kind of another political formation, and a change in the political landscape in Bihar?
Well, let me answer this. First of all, I have left the JDU. Rather, I was expelled from the JDU, which is something that I had hoped would happen. I have yet to decide my next formal affiliation with an organized political party. But it's important, especially when you're forced to stay at home because of Corona, that you take your time. Secondly, there is no doubt that Bihar is ripe for change because Mr. Nitish Kumar and the JDU and the BJP alliance has been there in power for a decade and a half, except for that interregnum with Lalu in between, Lalu Yadav ji. So there is a desire for change. There is also currently, because of the manner in which the migrant crisis was handled, a great deal of anger, resentment, and also, I must say, frankly and bluntly, suffering and misery. So that anger also can be channelized for change. But at the moment, because of the limited canvas for political activities, it's difficult to be able to say whether these forces can be mobilized into a credible front to actually take on the existing JDU-BJP alliance.
Right.
We don't even know when the elections will be held. Will they be held in October, or will they be further postponed?
Yes. So I'm going to, sir, I'm not going to have, I'm not going to keep our wonderful audience waiting. So I'm going to move to Swati for any questions from the audience for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Varma. That was such an epic session. You know, to say that we are wiser and more enlightened after listening to you is like an understated cliche, but it's absolute truth. So before we take audience questions, I would like to request all members of the audience to send their home addresses to either Karishma, Ketki, or myself. And we will try, I repeat, really try and send copies of Mr. Varma's books to you for you to relish and to totally immerse during this pandemic. Let's bring in the first question from Mr. Mudit Jain. Mudit, please ask your question.
Hello, sir. I've heard you earlier and you're very learned. But sir, for a layman like me, despite our great Ori traditions, philosophy, giving yoga and meditation to the world, we are such a venal society, corrupt. And why is that, sir? Why is that conscious not permeated our consciousness of our great traditions?
Well, you know, never make one mistake of believing that when civilizations articulate themselves at a conceptual level, there is a mirror image that follows suit in terms of society. Let me give you an example. I don't think the world has yet seen a greater messiah of non-violence as Mahatma Gandhi was. He fought against the strongest military power of his time through non-violent means. The irony is that he died of a bullet shot. And the irony also is that even though he actually lived as the Mahatma between us and preached for decades about the importance of ahimsa, violence persists in society. So let us understand one thing. The grandeur of the concept of ahimsa, which is not new or born with Mahatma Gandhi, but which is a tradition that has come down to us over millennia. But let us also accept that societies are not perfect and that societies take time to change. But that does not mean that they should not change. And a lot can be done even within a democratic setup to ensure that societies conform more rigorously to what is a Hindu concept, by the way, of dharma, of right conduct. And it cannot be done only by laws. There has to be also the participation of the citizen.
So well said. Absolutely. Mr. Varma, the next question is from Mr. Vijay Bhingrade. Can we have Mr. Vijay? Yes, I think he's there. So, Mr. Vijay, please can you ask your question? Vijay ji, आप please आपका question पूछिए. Okay, maybe we'll.
हेलो या पवन जी, बस मैं एक आपको प्रश्न पूछ रहा हूँ हिंदी में, इसलिए माफी चाहता हूँ बिकॉज आपका पूरा प्रोग्राम मैंने इंग्लिश में सुना. खाली मुझे एक ही क्वेश्चन था. मैं ना हिंदुइज्म के बारे में पूछना चाहता हूँ ना किसी पॉलिटिकल के बारे में पूछना चाहता हूँ. मुझे इतना ही पूछना है कि जब तुलसीदास जी का रामायण जो अभी दूरदर्शन के ऊपर या टीवी जिस चैनल पे चल रहे रामायण, वाल्मीकि जी का जो ओरिजिनल रामायण होते हुए ये बाकी के जो रामायण है तो अब मेरे जैसे एक आम आदमी ने किसके ऊपर विश्वास रख के वो देखना चाहिए, पढ़ना चाहिए?
देखिए, एक चीज आप हिंदू धर्म के बारे में स्पष्ट समझ लीजिए कि अगर आप एक ही पुस्तक या टेक्स्ट पर अपनी सारी आस्था या अपनी जिज्ञासा को रखना चाहेंगे तो ये हिंदू धर्म में अनोखी बात होगी। उपनिषद भी कई है। अब आप अगर मुझसे पूछें कि कौन सा एक ही पढ़ूं, तो मेरा जवाब होगा कुछ तो पढ़ लीजिए। किसने उपनिषद लिखा ये भी नहीं मालूम है। एक ही दार्शनिक पद्धति नहीं है, हमारे 6 सिस्टम्स ऑफ फिलॉसफी है। अगर आप मुझसे पूछे किसको पढ़ूं, तो मैं अपने प्रेफरेंस या अपनी जो मेरी सोच है, मैं कह सकता हूं अद्वैत स्कूल, उत्तर मीमांस। पर आपको सांख्य योग पसंद आ सकता है। इसलिए हिंदू धर्म में एक ही भगवान, एक ही पुस्तक, एक ही मंदिर, एक ही पोप, ये है नहीं। वाल्मीकि की रामायण और तुलसीदास जी की रामायण दोनों एक ही तरह की हैं। तुलसीदास की रामायण वाल्मीकि के रामायण पर ही आधारित है, पर
बराबर है।
तुलसीदास की रामायण रामचरितमानस अवधि में है। वो उसका जो जो कविता शैली है वो अलग है। वो संस्कृत में लिखी गई थी, ये अवधि में है। इसमें लगता है कि श्री राम हमारे और आपके जैसे ही एक पुरुष है, भगवान होते हैं।
सत्य है, सत्य है।
Mr. Varma, we will now definitely look at all our mythological texts with a different eye, and we'll have a better understanding of all the subtle nuances of great literature. Let me bring in Rithima for her next question.
Hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you are.
Ridhima, you are.
Hi, sir. Tell me, in Indian mythology, when Krishna steals clothes of the gopis, steals butter, it is a prank and taken in light humor. But when Duryodhan disrobes Draupadi, we villainize him. Is it just convenience?
Actually, there is no notion of absolute sin in Hinduism.
Yeah.
When I say this, I'm not talking about arguing the case of moral relativism. Do you know that when Yudhishthir finally reaches heaven, and he is accompanied only by a stray dog, the other Pandu brothers and Draupadi die on the way.
Yeah, I know.
When he reaches heaven, he's quite surprised, and that's what the Mahabharata says, to find Duryodhan happily enjoying himself in heaven, while his brothers and Draupadi are in hell.
Okay.
When Duryodhan dies, according to the exact text of the Mahabharata, the heavens rain down flowers on him because he is such a good warrior and fulfilled his duty as such. Now, having said that, we know that Duryodhan was covetous. He wanted more than what he deserved. He was the cause of that great insult to a very strong lady called Draupadi. And Draupadi's reply to that insult is so interesting. Even before she comes to that assembly of men, she asks the question in a room to the messenger, whom did he lose first? Himself or me?
Yeah.
It's a question of jurisprudence, of law. And she repeats that question in the assembly of men. Anyway, that apart. Now, as far as Krishna and Radha are concerned, first of all, I must tell you that there are 2 levels at which you can see the incident of the clothes. Prudish purists who want to sanitize Hinduism of some of its remarkable ability to assimilate. You know what are our 4 purusharths? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
Right.
The pursuit of the sensual is also one of the 4 main goals of life. That's why you have the Kama Sutra, that's why you have Konarak, that's why you have Khajuraho. And that's why you have some of the erotic poetry of Hindu literature, particularly, for instance, if you read Kalidas.
Yeah.
Or Shankaracharya's Saundarya Lahari, which is an ode to the goddess, which is transparently erotic. So, therefore, first of all, Hindus are not prudish in a Victorian morality sense. Let's be clear. But the other variation to it is, which those influenced by British criticism of our culture, that we are full of carnal and sexual thoughts and we are a primitive religion, they then internalize this criticism and try to reinterpret our own tradition in categories that the British would approve. For them, Krishna was metaphorically taking away as God the egotistical things by which we preserve individual identity and asking his devotees without inhibition to surrender to him. That's the other interpretation. Choose your own. Hinduism allows you the freedom.
Thank you. Heartfelt
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Mr. Varma, heartfelt gratitude not only for this chat session, but also for you, who's just such a harbinger for preserving and presenting history, mythology, culture in all our books. Today I've come to know you're also a skilled raconteur, a best-selling author, such a lustrous luminary, and an architect of modern thought with deep research, and you have inspired each one of us today. Especially in the times of COVID, hearing you and your views have been so refreshing and so reflective. Members of the audience, thank you on behalf of Prabha Khaitan Foundation for being with us. We sincerely hope we can deliver Mr. Pavan Varma's books to you in the comfort of your homes. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking out time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and thank you, Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Thank you.